to get your voice heard, to share your thoughts. And the aim is to try and ensure as many people get to speak, but also share your views on the chat as well, so that we get to hear each and every person. This is an open space, and we're open to listening to what everyone has to say and what their ideas about. So the Citizens Assembly today is about the vetting that will commence today. And some of you have sent memorandum, some of you haven't. But we wanted to give an opportunity of listening to what you expect, and as well sharing what ought to be happening today. We have 5 speakers who will be joining from the legal profession and sharing views, to get to let you know what is the expectation. So I'll give you a bit of an overview. The parliamentary approval of cabinet secretaries is a constitutional requirement under Article 152, subsection 2 of the Constitution. The process of approval is governed by the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approvals Act, Cap 7F of the laws of Kenya. In considering the nomination of a person to office of cabinet secretary, Parliament is required under Section 7 of the Act to factor in certain key factors. One, procedure used to arrive at the nominee. Secondly, constitutional or statutory requirements relating to the office in question. And thirdly, the suitability of the person having regard to abilities, experience, and qualities required of the person. I think these are part and parcel of what people have been discussing with regards to what kind of capacities cabinet secretary should be bringing onto the table with regards to the various ministries. Whereas the procedure for nomination of cabinet secretary is largely a prerogative right of the president, as contemplated by the Constitution, the latter two considerations of import to the vetting process conducted by Parliament. In the first part, it's imperative to consider that constitutional and statutory requirements relate to the office of the Cabinet Secretary. Chapter 6 of the Constitution elaborately outlines the threshold that ought to be met by Cabinet Secretaries, being state officers within the meaning of Article 260. It is fundamental that the National Assembly ascertains that all persons nominated to be Cabinet Secretaries bear the qualities of personal integrity, competence, suitability, objectivity, impartiality, selfless service in the public interest, honesty, accountability, and discipline. Quite a bit. The nominees are required under Section 12A of the Leadership and Integrity Act to submit self-declaration forms to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for verification prior to appointment. This self-declaration contains information on technical, moral, and ethical qualifications of the nominee. Should there be any recorded inconsistency, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has a constitutional duty to investigate and make reports as required, which report must be considered by Parliament during vetting. In the other part, the suitability of a person is considered by Parliament, guided by the schedule to the Public Procurements Parliamentary Approvals Act, which requires inquiry into the following matters: 1. Personal information; 2. Educational background and employment history; 3. Professional qualifications, including professional associations and recognitions; 4. Political activities and public and political offices held; 5. Financial status and obligations; 6. Sources of income and net worth with justification. So we hope to see investigation as to the sources of income that most of these nominees will be stating, and criminal record or history of public inquiries, and lastly, what references are attached. So hopefully we'll get to also see the renominated secretary nominees, an analysis as to their 2-year stint in office, because their last job is the employment history, which was as cabinet secretaries. So those are part of the legal provisions that should be guiding the process. And my co-host will be Manuel Jose, and I'll be adding one of our speakers as a co-host as well to open the floor and start this discourse. I hope I've been able to share an opening that can guide the conversations. So thank you, Manwa, and welcome.
Thank you, Madam President, for that introduction. I think you've laid down the process that is required and that we expect the National Assembly to follow while they start the process of vetting the new cabinet secretaries who have been proposed, nominated by the President, and whose names were sent to the National Assembly for that exercise of vetting. It's very important to note that the office of the Cabinet Secretary is the highest policy level office in the country. And these are individuals who are expected to run the different ministries and government offices across the country that have an impact on our daily lives as Kenyan citizens. And I think the threshold created under the Constitution as enumerated by the President, Faith, is a process that we are keen to follow to ensure that at least that process is met. Previously, we have never had the National Assembly reject some of the names proposed by the President for approval by Parliament. We expect that this time round, perhaps the views presented by the members of the public will be taken into consideration. And this is in line with the decision that was issued by the Court of Appeal yesterday on the questions and the new parameters on public participation. Our expectation is that they will factor in the memoranda, the proposals made by the members of the public in the vetting process, so that that scrutiny that is contained under the Constitution on leadership and integrity, the scrutiny that is under Chapter 6 of the Constitution is met. And this process was put under the Constitution deliberately to ensure that the individuals holding these highest policy offices have the relevant professional qualifications, they have the relevant experience, they have the relevant integrity, they have the relevant ethics on questions of governance. And what we demand, and I think we expect from the National Assembly, particularly the committee that is undertaking the process of vetting, is a proper scrutiny, a rigorous process, a proper evaluation on the character, the experience, the ability, and their performance, the previous performance, because this is a job application. It goes through a substantive and procedural process of appointment, and you have to show your qualifications, you have to demonstrate your abilities, and we will want to see that, particularly the cabinet secretaries who are reappointed back into the positions they were holding or reshuffled in the process of reappointment. We will need them to perhaps demonstrate to the National Assembly and the committee as to what they did to deserve a second chance to run the same ministries that they have been nominated to actually sit as cabinet secretaries. And so this is the conversation, because essentially the previous processes of vetting has been an exercise in futility, because we have had cabinet secretaries who have been nominated, but they do not have the requisite qualifications to hold those offices. And I think the important question, the committee that is doing this and the general National Assembly needs to ask itself is, why did we find ourselves here? What led to the president declaring, dismissing the entire cabinet from office and starting the process afresh? And so that once we remind ourselves how we got here, then it's very easy for us to pick nominees, and the National Assembly is able to pick nominees who will be able to represent the best interests of the members of the public. Remember, these individuals are going to serve the members of the public, and the vetting process is being undertaken by the representatives of the people. And we need to remind the members of Parliament that this is not a process that they have to blind themselves from what has been happening, because if they do that, then they'll be committing a second mistake, which will otherwise still bring back the efforts that the members of the public have made to ensure that perhaps we reform the process of vetting itself. We consider the substantive issues, the conduct of these people, the character, their previous character in public office. We scrutinize their ability to run those offices and evaluate them. And before, of course, that vote is made as to whether they can be approved by Parliament as the law requires. As the President indicated, we have several speakers. We will want, I will want perhaps to invite, I can see PLO is here already, to make his opening remarks, even as we invite conversation on these questions, the expectations that we have on the National Assembly going forward from today, what we expect them to consider while vetting these individuals, because the decision they make will ultimately affect the lives of people or the lives of Kenyans. I want to invite PLO, if you can hear me, kindly, if you can take over the microphone.
Thank you, my good friend and my learned colleague, Manuel. Thank you, Madam President, for this particular platform to just converse on issues of national importance. And welcome aboard to the rest of the patriots, who are around this space. Again, it will be more than just a pleasure to hear your views as the vetting commences today with the docket of Interior and Coordination of National Government under Professor Kithure Kindiki, until more or less the process is actually completed. So just to build up on the background that was given by Madam President, Article 124, Sub-Article 4, Paragraph A of the Constitution provides that when a House of Parliament considers any appointment for which its approval is actually required under the Constitution or an Act of Parliament, then the appointment shall be considered by a committee of the relevant House. So this committee of the relevant House is the Committee on Appointments, one of the most powerful committees of Parliament, and it is established under Standing Order 204. Sub-Standing Order 1, and equally as read with Standing Order 204 as Sub-Standing Order 4, and provides that the Committee on Appointment shall consider for approval by the House the appointments under Article 152, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, which provides for the vetting of the cabinet secretaries. So the composition, just to give you a highlight of how the committee is actually composed, the Committee on Appointments in accordance with Standing Order 204, which provides that that select committee, shall be, designated the Committee on Appointments to be appointed by the House, and it shall consist, one, the Speaker of the National Assembly, who is the chairperson of that committee, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, the deputy leader of the majority party, the deputy leader of the minority party, and not more than 15 other members nominated by the House Business Committee, which is also chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly, on the basis of what we call proportional party membership in the House, and taking into consideration the numerical strength of the parties and the interest of independent members. So this committee is always appointed within 7 days on assembly of a new House, and shall serve for a period of 3 years. and that appointed, and if appointed thereafter, shall serve for the remainder of the term of the assembly. So that is the background of the committee, that you should expect to take over this particular exercise. So what I do expect today as the vetting commences, I would expect that parliamentarians, at least this time, just this once, they shall be, brutal with, the kind of questions that they are asking, and that what they shall be seeking is something that reflects their constituent members, and without any favor, without any fear, because as you can see, compared to the last vetting that happened, back in 2022, in October thereabouts, well, a lot has changed in between. So the 2 years for those who had already served in that particular 2-year period, shall and should, account for what they have done in their, tenure in office, and so on and so forth. So the lawmakers, have a lot of work to do beginning today, just to change the conviction. And as in the recent past, the nominees, the people who had expected to be locked out, easily sailed through. You saw, one of the cabinet secretaries, the committee on appointments proposed that her nomination should not sail through. But what happened? She was subsequently, given that position by the president. So that tells a lot of the kind of integrity issues that we have. And technically, when you do that, it is more or less a mockery of the useful mechanism, to just ensure the best people get these top public positions. Because what we want is a qualified cabinet. What we want is a cabinet, that would implement pro-people policies, because as Mano had mentioned, the cabinet is the apex, policy office. And the cabinet itself, that's the apex policy-making organ. So if you have people who are not qualified to occupy these particular positions, then it is an indictment to the entire administration from the presidency, and the output equally will be, quite an issue. And again, in light of the Finance Act 2023 judgment that was rendered yesterday, a lot needs to be done to just rewrite the stars and win back public confidence of the issues of administration. So that is my opening statement, and I would run it back to Manwa just to kickstart this particular session. And I thank you.
Thank you, PLO, for those contributions. I want to invite Howard. I think you have the microphone. If you can proceed kindly.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Madam President Faith. Congratulations on the award. Actually, you are leading by a very good example. We are proud of you. We can see a mark. It is just a few months in office and we can see a very good mark. Secondly, I would like to thank all the ladies in office. I would like them to ape your example, and I know Kenya shall be in a very better place. Number two, I would like to thank everyone who is in the space. I know by sharing, we have some solutions on things that affect us. And I'll go directly to the appointments. We have seen what the president has done. And actually, I'll be frank enough and say some of the guys that were appointed, actually, should I say appointed or elected? For example, someone like Oparanya. Oparanya is tainted. Oparanya is not clean. I mean, not all of us are clean, but I just want to say that Oparanya should just step back because his name is not yet cleaned. We know everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but to me, I know he is guilty until proven innocent. Number two, Joho is academically dwarfed. He has no any experience in that position. That one I can tell you without any fear of contradiction. So those are the two names that I think should not appear on that list. We've seen the president elect so many good people, and for example, the lady he has appointed in the office of the Attorney General. Why is it that everybody has no any problems with the appointment? Why? Because she fits in that position. Even without vetting, she fits in the position. So I think there are some names that were chosen just because of political affiliations, political rewards. But I'm looking forward to seeing this vetting group doing their great job. I know they are listening, and if they are really listening, they should give Kenyans what they expect. If they will not, they'll be blamed. Yeah. So that is it that I wanted to share with you, and I'm thankful because I'll be that brave. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. I am hoping that the National Assembly, of course, will pay attention to the communication from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, because part and parcel of the work they need to do is to ensure that they assist the National Assembly to actually unearth individuals who have ongoing investigations, ongoing cases. You remember we had the courts watered down the Article 10 and Chapter 6 provisions on leadership and integrity immediately after, before the elections of 2013, when, of course, the then aspirants for the position of president and deputy president were indicted before the International Criminal Court on crimes against humanity. And of course, the expectation we had at the time was that on the basis of that indictment alone, perhaps the IEBC should not have approved their names. And of course, subsequent to that, we have had individuals, of course, hold public office while they have pending matters before courts of law. And I think it's very important that the National Assembly redeems itself by paying attention to the recommendations made by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and any other agencies that are involved in investigations that touch on the nominees who have been presented before the National Assembly. Of course, we have concerns, and of course the members of the public have concerns with regard to the experience of some of the nominees. Remember, a majority of the cabinet secretaries who are not renominated, most of them lacked in terms of having relevant professional qualifications with regard to the offices they were running. And at the same time, they also lacked proper experience to be cabinet secretaries. There's a difference between being a cabinet secretary and being a politician. And I think the drafters of the Constitution had good intentions to ensure that politicians do not hold cabinet positions, because cabinet positions are the highest policy level of government, where you expect people with the skill set, the proper qualifications, and experience, and of course adding up to the issues of integrity and experience on governance. And that is why Parliament has been given that chance to evaluate keenly these individuals, even those who the members of the public have said lack in terms of academic qualifications, perhaps to be questioned as to how they're going to run those ministries. Because if you have a cabinet secretary at the top who does not understand, who does not have the experience, the ability to perform their duties, that inability boils down to the other people under that ministry and ultimately affects delivery of services to the members of the public. And of course, we'll be keen to see how Parliament proceeds with that issue of inexperienced cabinet secretaries, who have integrity questions. Pius Osoro,
Wakili, I think you had
Pius,
called
are
me
you there?
earlier, but then
Or
Dr.
just before Pius, Howard, you can
Thank you.
proceed. Howard.
Thank you, Wakili. Thank you so much, and thank you, President, for creating this space. Those who have spoken before me, that's President Wakili Manwa, PLO, and Ignatius. I think they've done a good job trying to just give us a picture what the law says about the question of nomination of the cabinet and the vetting of the cabinet. So I would not want to repeat. I will perhaps take a slightly different trajectory and just look at the nominations that have been done and the expectations that we have as the public. In the wake of elections 2022, I listened to a few debates about how a president goes about putting together his cabinet. And these conversations were going around two things, that a president would perhaps consider the economy or economic well-being, or consider the political well-being. Someone was trying to do an analysis of how previous presidents have done a balance between the economy and politics. Something like, President Kibaki, President Moi was doing well politically but poor economically. President Kibaki was doing well economically but doing poor politically. And he was just trying to say that when a president is putting together his cabinet, they will normally try to balance that. The nomination of this cabinet that has just happened, it appears that President William Ruto is more concerned about his political well-being, because where we are as a country, the general expectation, at least from where I stand, we are having an expectation that when the president puts together a cabinet, he should be thinking about questions of combating corruption, which seems to have taken a backseat, and the corruption has been growing at an alarming rate. We were thinking that he's going to put up a cabinet that will address wastage in government. By wastage, I mean loss of government resources, not necessarily to corruption, but it is money. We are talking about money that is lost, not because it is stolen, but it's just lost, either gone to things that it shouldn't have been spent on, but still it hasn't reached the point that it's giving the best output or the best outcome to the public. We're expecting that he will pick a cabinet that will help him to cut down on public debt and ease the burden of debt from Kenyans. We were expecting that he's going to put up a cabinet that will revive the economy, or at least give growth to the economy. And when I say growth to the economy, I always make this statement that an economy that is doing well does not need to be explained. It is felt. The cabinet that he just dismissed, I listened to Professor Njuguna Dungu struggling to explain to the public that the economy is doing well. And I kept on saying that if an economy is doing well, you do not need a professor of economics to explain to the public that the economy is doing well. An economy that is doing well will be felt by the least of the people within the general public. Now, going away from the expectations that we've had on the president, when you look at the cabinet that he has nominated following the dismissal of the other cabinet, he seems to have considered his political calculations more than the issues and the expectations that I've put out there. If you asked any average Kenyan whether he feels inspired by these nominees as far as combating corruption is concerned, I doubt a high percentage will say yes. Most will actually say no. This doesn't look like a cabinet that can combat corruption or can work toward combating corruption. By the time the president goes looking for opposition scavengers, certainly I don't think he is being pushed, or he's being moved by the wish to address wastage in government. We know that when a government has to go to raid the opposition, so that we go back to the situation of the mongrel we had under the last government and the BBI arrangements and all the things that came with it, it's a sure way of going into more wastage as opposed to reducing wastage. Now, we do have expectations on Parliament. We expect them to be ruthlessly truthful to this vetting. We expect them to carry the aspirations of all Kenyans, to do a deep scrutiny of the candidates, to be factual, perhaps to put aside their political calculations. But the question is, will they? Because by the time the president was going to raid the opposition of their key leaders to bring them into the nominees of his proposed cabinet, I'm sure he was thinking about how to get the names to go through Parliament. And when the leader of opposition, Honorable Raila Odinga, comes to tell us that he has not entered into any agreement with President William Ruto for a government of national unity, that to me sounds like a facade. It is the games that people play in politics. You do something in the background, then come and give us a different facade, so that we are sent in the wrong direction, as thinking that these people have no agreement. The president just picked specific individuals randomly, but in actual sense, the truth of the matter is that they must have struck a pact in the background to ensure that they mobilize sufficient numbers in parliament to ensure that this list of nominees will sail through without any of them failing. So it will be a replay of what happened in the first nominations of cabinet, where someone was telling us that the president has presented his skunks and we will give his skunks to him, so that he's going to grapple with it. Whatever will happen, we do not know. Now, one of the people who was speaking reasonably that time, he's one of the skunks this time round, and he's expected to be taken through that parliament. And the calculations have already been done that, as long as we are able to have people from Baba's side and the people from president's side, we should be able to sail them easily through parliament. This is how parliament has been used all along, and I don't see that much has changed. The calculations have remained the same. Some newspaper reported that the president has applied the old methods to try and deal with the current situation. The expectation of the public, which was perhaps the president to rein in on his cabinet, maybe to cascade it to the other accounting officers and perhaps leaders of other institutions within his government, that expectation has already taken a backseat. And right now, the mood, the situation, the factual position is that the approach is different. The approach is that the president is keen on securing his political position and his political architecture. Perhaps he's already focused his eyes on 2027 and looking at how he can mobilize specific regions and get numbers behind him. So when I look at all that all together, I begin feeling that I need to manage my expectations. I do not have very high expectations on Parliament. I can clearly see even by now that once the dust on the protest has already settled and people are now getting back to business as usual, Parliament has already also started going back to how they do things normally. I listened to the leader of majority yesterday speak about a court decision that had just been rendered regarding the Finance Bill 2023-2024. I didn't expect that from coming from him. If he's a person who has learned lessons from the protests that happened recently and the invasion of parliament, he shouldn't have talked the way he talked yesterday. Because a court did not just sit and say that this law is unconstitutional. This thing has gone through a process and people had enough time to canvass before the court. By the time the court is rendering the decision, I want to believe that he had not even taken time to read that decision of the court. He was just making a statement on the floor of the House and turning the tide to go the political direction as things are happening, as we can now all see that this is the new direction that has been taken. If you try to go and protest, someone can go mobilize goons, tell them to break into a supermarket somewhere and blame it on the protesters, so that they can take whatever action they want to take against the protesters. And you can see the mobilization that has been happening on social media, the mobilization that has been happening on mainstream media to paint protests as a bad thing and as anarchy, to paint any quote unquote maandamano, or whether it's peaceful protest or whatsoever. Someone is working behind the curtains day and night to ensure that they'll paint it in a certain state that will give them justification either to use force or to find other political methods of getting out of it. So it's clear that the agenda shifted from accountability, the agenda shifted from the debate on good governance, and now it is purely a political system, a political approach, and political methods of resolving it. And the eyes now are focused on 2027, considering that it's a very, very short period away. By the time this cabinet settles down, it will be already 2027. So I would ask members, perhaps those who are listening to me, that manage your expectations. We do not expect much from Parliament as things stand now. The mathematics are purely political, and the direction is purely political. The question of economy and good governance might only be spoken about as a way of calming temperatures and letting the politicians take the seat and do what they wish to do with the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. That is quite some profound submission, and I've picked a couple of issues, including that poignant and still profound statement that when an economy does well, no explanation is needed. It becomes inexplicable, and that sometimes both members of the opposition and members of government, when they come together, you call them opposition scavengers, and it is quite unfortunate, that they would unite. Of course, they are political cousins, but what the country wants is, a working and a functional country, economically, political stability, and so on and so forth. So, well, just to add on to that, I think the members of parliament are also on trial today. I mean, today is either they redeem themselves or they continue sinking towards the abyss of no return. Because having faced, a couple of backlash from their endorsement of the Unpopular Finance Bill 2024, whose 69 clauses were deleted in total, and when they resumed their sessions on 23rd, I believe, just the other day in June, they had to, stamp their agreement on the president's reservations to delete the 69 clauses of the Finance Bill 2024, because this came amidst the Gen Z protest, peaceful protest, and the MPs have, to do much better beginning today. So it is an opportune time, a great opportunity for the August House to just, rise like Phoenix from the ashes and win back that public, trust, redeem its image, after the Finance Bill fiasco, that did result in what, political pundits have been calling it an insurrection. But for me, I would term it as a withdrawal of, the delegated power over people, which has always been donated to their representatives. So that invasion of parliament by peaceful protesters, and the needless deaths that could have been avoided if only the powers that be did what was right and not what was easy. So with that, I would like to invite Pius. Is your speaker on? Please kindly take the mic and pick it up.
Yes, good morning. I need to take this opportunity to thank Madam President for the opportunity and also the co-hosts. And I want to go straight to the discussion today about the Cabinet Secretaries vetting. And I just want to remind Kenyans that we should not ignore at all the fact that this cabinet, the new cabinet that is being vetted as from today, came into being because Ruto sacked his cabinet after the Gen Z demonstrations. Let us also not forget that the reason behind why the Gen Z were on the streets demonstrating, the Gen Zs went to the streets to demand for accountability in governance. They also went there to speak against corruption that is rampant in government. They went there to speak against unmerited favors, which is also rampant in government. They went there to speak against punitive laws and bills which are passed in Parliament, and so on and so forth. In other words, the Gen Zs demanded for a working and a functional country that is run based on the Constitution. And among the very important things that even what Madam President has already told us in her opening statement is that leaders who are supposed to hold public office need to be people of high integrity and people who are honest, among other things. So now when we look at the nominees that the president has on the list, first we even wonder why they are there in the first place. Because some of these nominees are people that he himself sacked recently when there were demonstrations, and he was on TV, on the press, saying that, he's doing what the Gen Zs demanded to be done. So now that he sacked these people, what was the reason behind him, again, bringing them back? You see, that is a dishonesty. Even the president himself is now exhibiting dishonesty. And so we start now doubting about the product that he's giving us. So now if we look at these guys who have been nominated, some of them have been poached from the opposition. And if we look at the history of the opposition, and specifically the ODM, we see people who have been speaking against poor governance over the years. And these leaders who have been proposed, two of them have been previously governors who have served their 10 years term to completion. Some of them have issues to do with governance as they were governors in their counties. Now, if you look at their positions, like I want to mention names here, Oparanya and Joho. There are people who have been recorded to have castigated Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza government before publicly. They even vowed not to join Ruto because they never believed in his policies. For example, the wheelbarrow economics. Now, when we see them now wanting to join these governments, what are they telling us about their integrity? What are they telling us about their honesty? Are they honest with the people of Kenya? Are they telling us that we should forget about what they said in the past about the wheelbarrow economics or the bottom-up economics? Are they telling us that they are now going to that government, to implement the ODM agenda? Do they have such agreements even before they join? We know very well that they are the minority. They will be the minority in that government. Will they be able to execute any of their policies, any of their good policies in quotes? So this in itself it speaks a lot about the integrity. It speaks a lot about the honesty to the Kenyan people. So we will not be able to expect much from them, even if they are appointed into government, because they are not telling us the truth, even as they begin. They are moving there, they will be saying this, and they do the other thing. That is one. Then number two, I also want to talk about the other nominees like Kindiki. This is a man, when the demonstrations were happening, a number of young people were shot dead on the streets for simply holding the Kenyan flag, holding a bottle of water, and just saying that they need good governance from the leaders. Some of these young people were abducted. A number of them have not been found up to date. How are we sure that this man, when he goes back, is not even more hardened to do even terrible things? Because, as we know, the demonstrations are not over yet. You see, also, are you telling us that he's going back there to be more brutal? I think these are issues that the members of parliament should look at, because if we allow such a people to join government, then it means there is a problem. The other issue is about qualifications of these men and women. Now, when you give somebody a docket like the Ministry of Mining. This cabinet secretary who is going to be appointed as the cabinet secretary in the Ministry of Mining, which prior qualifications does he have in mining? You talk about these other ministries. This is where we have gone wrong as a country. We place people who are less qualified to head ministries, and they do not have those qualifications to lead such a ministries. And these are ministries where these ministers are tasked by the people of Kenya to sign agreements with other organizations and countries and people on our behalf. So how can you sign documents that you have no idea about what you are doing? These are the people who depend on advice from other people on the dockets they are holding. We need to have people who are qualified, who know what happens in that ministry. They have the background, academic background on what they are supposed to be doing in that ministry, so that even when they sign treaties, even when they sign agreements, they are not shortchanged, and that by extension, Kenyans are not shortchanged. For example, today, if we ask the former minister of health, the documents that he signed on behalf of Kenya, did she even know what she was signing? Yet these agreements are binding to Kenyans for so many years to come. If you have a minister in charge of finance, this is a man who is going to sign documents with IMF, with World Bank, with so on. So we need people who are well versed with the ministries that they are going to be in charge of. So we should ask ourselves, is Joho capable of running the Ministry of Mining? Is the nominee to defense, to the Ministry of Defense, aware of what happens in the defense ministry? Those are the things that the members of parliament are supposed to ask themselves, because if they don't, they should know that we have August 8. We are the Gen Zs are going to go to the streets, and we are going to move there. And if they are not careful, we will again speak out. So let them look at these names critically and give us people who are qualified, people who have no integrity issues, people who are honest to lead those ministries. Otherwise, and maybe before I forget, there is one question I need to ask Madam President concerning the agreements which are signed by the Kenyan government on our behalf. I think, I don't know whether there is a law that compels government to expose or to put to public these agreements they are signing on our behalf. Because some agreements are so much, so bad. They are so, they take us to slavery. Yet, they are signed by one person. And some of them we cannot even know. They are signed in the darkness. Can we compel the government before they sign any agreements with any foreigner, with any government, foreign government? Can we compel the government to hold public participation, especially those agreements which have far-reaching consequences on the Kenyan people? For example, you sign an agreement which forces Kenyans not to share seeds, which forces Kenyans not to share, not to do breeding of livestock. If you force Kenyans to take chemicals in form of vaccines, those are consequences which are far-reaching. Can we compel the government before they sign such agreements? Yet, we know we elected them, but they need to seek consent from the Kenyan people. Is there a possibility? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Piers, for your submissions. And I've just to highlight a few things that perhaps are of grave, concern. You've mentioned the issue to do with agreements, and yes, the Constitution of 2010, the access to information held by public authorities. So the Constitution promotes proactive disclosure of information held by public authorities, and that includes even the state. So disclosure of some of these agreements, has been an uphill task, time without number, because if agreements were, entered into or negotiated in such a way that it did reflect, the principles enshrined under our Constitution, then having it to be disclosed to the public should not be, that too much an uphill task, for you to undertake as a government, as a, state organ, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so we are still lacking in terms of, having a proactive disclosure of these agreements that we sign locally, regionally, and even globally, because they are far-reaching implications on on the people, and most of these agreements revolve equally around the borrowing. So when you find some of the agreements concealed to the effect that the public cannot even access them, despite having a legislative framework that should compel, state organ and any public authority, the Constitution, you have the Access to Information Act 2016, and other, legal frameworks that just lays down, a foundation for government to actually lay bare all these agreements. And to date, even the contracts and the agreements like the SGR contract, the inflated amount of the contracts just to to benefit a few individuals, but at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers, because it trickles down to the taxpayers who have to foot the debts that did not benefit the country in no way. And of course, having to midwife the process, the budgeted corruption. Yeah, so it's far much worse than a malady, and hopefully, I think we can have just a rebirth of how things have been done before. And I also agree with you on the aspects to do with the powers bestowed upon these MPs, because right now it does feel, and has always been felt, that Parliament has been an appendage of the executive, that Parliament does not represent the people who elected them directly, and they take instructions from elsewhere. They don't listen to their people when there are legislation before the House, and the legislation have far-reaching consequences. They're punitive. They don't reflect what the people want. So it's quite saddening. And like I said, in as much as the 20 cabinet secretary nominees, excluding, of course, the attorney general designate, that is Dorcas Odur AC, and the cabinet secretary designate for the East African Community Affairs and Regional Development. Well, today marks the day when we see if the members of parliament are with the people, they are still against the people. And that means that it will be a rigorous exercise, a tough exercise when the voting begins, because the MPs at the end of the day have to perform the constitutional requirement diligently and either confirm suitable candidates, deserving candidates, or reject undeserving candidates or candidates who are only there as a political tool to advance an agenda 3 years ahead, before the next general election. So thank you for your submission once again, Pius, and I'd like to invite on board I don't know if Manuel is on board. Well, Felicia, is your mic on? I think you're now added as a speaker, so you can proceed. Abdul, can you hear me? Mano, can you hear me? Yes, Abai, I think you have the mic now. Please proceed.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak and hear my voice here. Personally, I think the names, by the look of things, even when the president was reading the names of the likes of Oparanya, Ali Hassan Joho, he even took a moment to, I think he was laughing when he was reading those names. I don't know whether he had been briefed already or it was like alijishtukia tu. So I think he wasn't even sure that he was going to be given that kind of list by the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Some of these people have cases in court, and now the opposition and Kenya Kwanza are working together. There's a likelihood, even if the ACC has said Oparanya has a case to answer, I don't think it will be easy for them to get him out of the list, because the opposition and the Kenya Kwanza government are working together. Ali Hassan Joho, on the other hand, has also been, we remember in around 2010, he was named by the Right Honorable Saitoti, the late Saitoti, that he was among the drug barons. Actually, that video is in the internet. So I don't know why the president would want to entertain such kind of people to enter into government. I don't know whether you can hear me. Hello.
I can hear you. Please proceed.
Yes, I don't know why the president will allow his team to have such kind of faces, given that they are corrupt. They have cases in court to answer. I don't know why. I don't know whether he has good intentions for this country or not. But from the protests, from the way the police have been handling people, I think it's quite clear that the president has no good intentions for the people of Kenya and for our future. That is the reason why we need to put our voices out here and say we don't want these people who have served as governors being recycled back into these ministries. Some of these people have been given key ministries in our country. We need people who have a track record, people who are performers, people who have shown us that they can do something for the public. I don't know whether there is anything good that Oparanya did in Kakamega that the people of Kakamega are proud of. Other than being Tuwetu, I don't think there is anything other than the graft cases that he has. Oparanya was a minister way back in even in the Kibaki regime. I think he was a minister. I don't think there's anything substantial that he did that we can bring him back into government. Some of these people also don't have even degrees. I don't know whether Joe has a degree. I don't know. I'm not sure, but he has been appointed, and we have people out here who are very educated, people who have good track record, who have done things that we can see. People who have held public offices and they have done good things for our country. I don't know why the president cannot pick such a people and he's going for political failures. People like Migosi Ogamba was a deputy governor of, he was a running mate of Machogu. I don't know why he's bringing back political failures into his government. I think going forward, I don't know, I saw Madam President is here. I don't know whether you guys can advise us if we need to do away with this constitution so that going into the future, we cannot allow someone who has served in a given docket, let's say a member of parliament or a governor, should not be allowed into government. I don't know if that will be possible and how we can go about it.
Bye, are you still on? I think we lost you.
Hello?
We lost you, so I think it's connectivity issues, but you can proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
I was saying, I don't feel like, okay, the 2010 constitution has served us very well, but to some extent, I feel like it has some deficiencies. It has some issues that we need to really address. We really need to put it very clear that there is no way someone can serve as governor for 10 years and then bring him back and we reward him the position of being a minister again. He has done his 10 years. Let that person go home for good or get some other things to do for. I think Oparanya is around 69. He can get other things to do. He can run businesses, but not bringing him back to government. There are so many things he can do. Maybe advise the president if they are friends. Those are kind of things that those people can do. I think we need, going forward, I think we need to amend this constitution. I feel like it has some deficiencies that we really need to address. And I've been really trying to know how we can do that. I hope we have legal minds in the House who can tell us what we need to do so that we can amend this constitution. There's a big mess with this constitution. We're being overrepresented. We have so many dockets. We need really to reduce the number of ministers that we have right now. So that is my contribution, and I hope the members of parliament, those who are here, and if there's a friend of any member of parliament here, they really need to tell them to do the right thing. If someone is not qualified, please don't massage that donkey. Let that person go home. Thank you.
Thank you, Abaya. Just to address some of the concerns that you've mentioned, including the amendments to the Constitution. Well, there are two ways that the Constitution can be amended. It can be amended, by parliamentary initiative, or it can be amended by a popular initiative. So when you look at Article 255, I presume, the Constitution, which it's under Chapter 16. Chapter 16 basically talks about amendment of the Constitution. So the amendment, of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, shall be enacted again in accordance with Article 256 or Article 257, and again approved in accordance with that provision by a referendum if that particular amendment does relate to a couple of matters. One, that includes the supremacy of this Constitution. Two, the territory of Kenya. Three, you have the issue to do with the sovereignty of the people. Then you have the national values and principles of governance, which is referred to under Article 10, Sub-Article 2, Paragraph A to Paragraph D. You have issues to do with the Bill of Rights, the term of office of the president, the independence of the judiciary, other commissions and independent offices, to which Chapter 15 of the Constitution will apply. You have the functions of Parliament as well. You have the objects, the principles and structure of devolved government, or any other matter incidental, thereto. And I think what you've raised equally meets the criterion on what I've just mentioned. So yeah, so it is possible. I mean, as long as we have to find the right way, either through the parliamentary initiative, but what you have to note, or the popular initiative, but what you have to note is if any amendment to the Constitution touches on the crux of the Constitution. The crux is like the spine or the basic structure of how our Constitution is aligned. Then the popular initiative should be the way to go, because when you look at the parliamentary, initiative, what it does address, any other matter apart from consequential amendments to the legislation arising from any bill that has been fronted to amend the Constitution. Okay, and it equally has its own procedures. But the popular initiative, as you had seen in the 2005 referendum, for a new constitution, the clamor and cry for, a new constitutional dispensation. But right now, from 2005 to 2010, from 2010 after the promulgation of the constitution, 14 years later, there has been a lot of developments in between. We've seen governors who've served for two consecutive terms, vying to become senators. And for me, I think that is quite unethical, if you asked me. And I don't know, but sometimes one should know when to leave the stage as a dancer, because it does erode the tenets of leadership, the principles of governance, and it is an abuse. It is an abuse of the constitutional process. Yes, legally it could be okay constitutionally, but it is unethical politically, and that will mean that whoever has served as a governor who still vie to be a senator, nothing is stopping them. So I think it is just a matter to do with ethics, and maybe to protect exactly, either loot for those who have been indicted by the EACC. And what doesn't sit well with me is that a governor was served for 2 terms, or even 1 term, granted, and you're vying to become a senator. And the Senate oversights, county governments. So how then would you sit in a house that oversights a government that you oversaw as a governor? There's quite a couple of conflict of interest matters that does arise. So yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that is ongoing and hopefully shall see the light of the day. So I would like to invite the next speaker.
Manuel, one more question.
Yes.
Though it's not related to the topic of today, because I'll not get any chance to speak again, let me ask here.
Sure,
can you
sure,
hear me?
sure. Proceed.
So
yes, I can proceed.
There's a case I saw in Ghana where the first lady and the second lady were made to refund all the payments that had been made by the government of Ghana to them after it was realized that the offices that they were occupying were unconstitutional. So my question was, is it possible for us in Kenya, since now the office of the first lady and the second lady are all unconstitutional, is it possible for us to move to court to seek a refund from the first lady and the second lady of this country, because they've been occupying unconstitutional offices, even the prime cabinet secretary? Is it possible? Is it something that is possible? Maybe. Hello?
Can you hear me? Let me respond
Yes?
to you. I'm saying it
Yeah.
is anything is possible under the sun, but the Prime Cabinet Secretary's position has been a matter that has been canvassed before. And for the First Lady, while the Constitution in no way, even provides for the First Lady for the 16 plus chapters and the 230 plus articles that I've gone through, well, it doesn't provide for the First Lady expressly or even impliedly. But I think it is a matter of tradition, more to do with that, rather than a legal, concept adopted, in our own laws. And the former Attorney General, Professor Kithure Kindiki, once gave an advisory on both the First Lady, the Second Ladies, the Third Ladies, whoever they are. But, the fact that the other day Parliament, failed, the National Assembly for that matter, failed to side with the executive order by the president, trying to remove the budgetary allocation to the First Lady and the Second Lady, then it speaks more of political inclination, because their argument was, the parliamentarians' argument while they were passing the supplementary budget estimates the other day, is that there will be legal machinery mounted in the courtrooms by the staff members, because of breach of contracts and so on and so forth. Well, that doesn't make sense to the maximum extent it should, because here you are trying to tell us that that's the only reason for you to not scrap off the budgetary allocation in the supplementary budgetary estimates for both the First Lady and the Second Lady. And yet, the directive that the president gave, that none of those officers should actually have any budgetary allocation. So yeah, I mean, it's something that can still be challenged, because even you have a right to go to court and petition the court to have this matter heard on that constitutional basis that you perceive it to come from. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to political goodwill. And sometimes, politics, has its own, murky waters that parliamentarians would rather drown and found instead of actually doing that which is right. So they will always opt to do that which is easy. And that's why we have the budgetary allocation not scrapped off for both offices, in as much as both offices are not, enshrined in our constitution. So that will be my response to you, Aboya. And if you permit me a little latitude, allow me to proceed to the next speaker. So we have Tom Boyer. I don't know if you can hear me, and proceed. Tom Boyer, can you hear me? Dr. Singo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please proceed. Please proceed.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you are well wherever you are. Thank you for this host. Thank you, Madam Faith, LSK President, and any other host together with the listeners. I just want to put across some of the points. I've heard people talking here about this. The topic of today, we have the issue of Cabinet Secretaries vetting. True, we are wondering, we are surprised, but all in all, these issues, they are issues that this is a country that is governed by the law. And the problem is with us, right from the people, the common and ordinary mwananchi, up to the leadership. Because all these leadership that we are having, we are the people who send them to power. There is a question where we are asking the likes of Oparanya, after you have served as a governor, should you again proceed to the cabinet? And also, should you again, after the governor you have served for 10 years, should you proceed to the Senate? Number one, remember the Constitution is not clear about that. And I want to say that even if the Constitution will be amended, there is a lot that we take into consideration by the time the Constitution is being amended or is being put in place. That one, the lawmakers that are here can put it clear for us. Because, for example, we have in US, the former President Barack Obama was a senator who later on proceeded to the presidency. And before that, he has gone through a lot. There is something called the track record. Each and every person here will want to start from somewhere and end somewhere. What matters is what are you doing by the time you are serving in those positions. So I don't see the problem with somebody serving, because by serving for 10 years shows how competent you are, shows that the people have trust in you. That's why they can vote you after 5 years and re-vote you again to that position. Several governors we have, for example, we have a governor from Migori, Obado, that is with the judiciary. A lot of cases are piling there, and you know, in this country, you are not guilty until proven guilty. How are we going to know that true the people like Oparanya have cases with the EACC, and all these bodies are corrupt. All these bodies are corrupt, and always politicians will claim that they are being accused of the things that they have not done. So you will wait until you are proven guilty is when we can be satisfied, like you should not be served in these political offices again. So the process of moving from one place to other place, I don't think that one there is a problem. I'm having a problem with the people who have been reappointed, e.g. Kindiki. There is a lot that has happened in this country. People have died. People who died in Mukuru and Jenga, people who died in Shakaola, and the police. We have all the bodies of police could not tell and have got no proper information about this. Up to date, we have not been told how those people died. We have not been told how people died in Mukuru Njenga and who killed them and what was the purpose. So that one shows me that this guy is quite incompetent and should not be reappointed. And I want to call upon the judiciary to take it on. I want to call Faith to let them just do something to make sure that these people, even after they have approved by this parliament, that we now understand is a little bit corrupt, because the minority side plus the majority are now together, and they might speak one language to make sure, positively or negatively, to make sure these people pass as per the will of the president. So let the judiciary take its course, and these are also independent bodies that can come and assist. The only fear that I'm having, we should not run away from the fact all these bodies are corrupt. They all do the will of the president, one and only person that is there with all powers and dictating them. I wish we will be having people like Maraga. Maraga really did it well. And I wish we will have somebody who can do it for us now before we come out as the people of Kenya to speak. But the all body that has been appointed by the president, there is a problem. We are not happy, but also there are new faces that we are seeing. It is good to give time. We are all not perfect. It is good to give time for the new faces that we have seen in the cabinet, or the people who have been appointed, to see on how they can perform. I'm very happy with the appointment of the Attorney General, new Attorney General. I don't know much about her, but I've gone through her biography, and we are expecting to see that can we have people who can serve. Also, again, this political post, remember, they are free for each and every person, but it is the people of Kenya that are making the work difficult, because they believed in handouts. When they are doing this kind of election, they don't give young people time to feature in this post, so that it opened for them the ways towards the end of this journey of being into leadership. If we want to change this country, we have to be inside it. So as I finish, I will request each and every person, the youths, that let us be the change that we want. Kindly, let's make sure that we have our vote. The LSK team, kindly, you people take it very fast, that to make sure that the government release all the IDs, we register as voters, so that we also occupy this parliament. When you are outside, it is too difficult for you to do that. You will only make noise, but you cannot take it into action. Thank you. I render my submission.
Thank you, Dr. Singo, for your submissions. They are so well noted, and I'd like to hand over the microphone to Tom Boyer. I think you can hear me right now, can't you? Tom, can you hear me? Please speak, Tom. You have the mic. Tom, can you hear me? I think you're having connectivity issues. I will proceed to Mzalendo. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Thank you so much for this opportunity with your fellow co-hosts and Madam President. Cabinet Secretaries Vetting, let your voice be heard. Mr. Piolo, I would like to submit that actually I don't think whether Article 19 has been, Article 119 of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, I don't know whether it is actually taken to be a serious article in the Constitution, because as I speak, I submitted a memorandum to ask Parliament to consider not vetting in some of the cabinet secretaries. So I see the vetting is starting today, and they haven't gotten back. So I think the National Assembly is actually taking us for a joyride, because actually I expected a conversation whether they have admitted the memorandum or the memorandum did not meet a threshold. So I think that's unfair on the part of the National Assembly. Then maybe just something to say about our constitution. As the LSK have actually fought during these demos, we have seen what they have done. I was asking if we can also be submitting amendments to some article of the Constitution, like Article 152. PLO, I'm wondering why Article 152 5B is saying that dismiss. So dismiss on what basis? I think that article is giving the president a lot of leverage to do whatever he wants. So you dismiss, after dismissing, so what next? I think you guys, you should help us look at that article well. If it needs some amendment, I think it will be better, because you dismiss tomorrow, you dismiss today, tomorrow you bring back to job. So why did you miss yesterday? Why did you dismiss yesterday? So I think that article should be worked on. Maybe I will land there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mzalendo, for your submissions. Well, I think the dictates of Article 152, sub-Article 5B, paragraph B of the Constitution on the dismissal of a CS. I think that is anchored on sub-Article 6. I think on those grounds of gross violation of the provision of the Constitution, where there are serious reasons for believing that the CS has actually committed a crime under national or international law, or for gross misconduct as well. And this is on the recommendation, for dismissal by the National Assembly. So dismissal at will may not be the case, but it has to be anchored on specific grounds. And I think on also the basis of bringing shame to that particular office that one, holds, should be one of the grounds. And I think when they were dismissed by, through the Gazette notice that was published a few weeks ago, it more or less cast, aspersion on the credibility of the cabinet secretaries. So to have them reappointed, to have some close to 7 or so reappointed to, the same or different, positions at the cabinet level, then for me it is quite unfortunate, because when you are dismissed, it's like summary dismissal. I mean, it's like you have no foundation, for me to either retain you, as my appointee. And again, like I said, everything that happens in the political corridors happens by design and not by chance. So thank you for your submission once again, Mzalendo. I would give the mic to Kir. Kir, can you hear me?
Maybe
I can hear you loud and
something, please.
clear.
Yes, Mzalendo, before Kir proceeds.
Thank you. I was asking, now what is the process like if you submit a memorandum and then the vetting goes on and it has not been considered? What is the process now?
Well, administratively, I think what the clerk, does as the custodian of, some of those bills and the memorandum, for submission to Parliament on different basis, whether whether through amendments to given statutes, or even through now vetting process that begins today, think they may not directly get back to either confirm the receipt or lack thereof of the memorandum. But I'm certain if you had exercised your right under Article 119, which is the right to petition Parliament on different grounds, then as long as it is sent, I think it should be on the records of the parliamentary pressings. So I think what you have done is something right. At least you have constitutionally exercised that which is required of you as a citizen, and the bureaucracy now on the selection of whatever kind of memorandum that have been submitted, because I can bet that a lot of people have submitted memorandum and trying to sieve through them and get back to those who sent their memorandum may not actually be the case. But I think next time when you do submit, and I hope it gets considered in as much as they didn't try to you, next time I think submitting that physical copy and signing against your name on the records, on that particular, records for memorandum in Parliament should suffice. So that's the kind of advice I will give you. But thank you for submitting that memorandum.
Sorry, maybe if I could just chip in just specifically on that. Now,
yes, Abner.
Yes, thank you. Now, the vetting process for the CS nominees, I call them nominees because they're yet to be approved, will be done by the Selection Panel Committee of Parliament, which is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly, that is Honorable Moses Wetangula, as we speak. Now, for the Speaker, I think it is Mzalendo, who I think is very keen on his memorandum, which is submitted. I would like to inform him, first of all, he may want to tune in and follow the proceedings. I think for all nominees, I don't know if he submitted to all or some. He may need to check the schedule in terms of time when the particular CS nominee will be attending the vetting process. Now, the vetting process, basically what happens is that there would be general questions that would have been prepared maybe by the members of the committee themselves. And more specifically, then they would be put to task to answer to a concern raised by members of the public, stakeholders in by the memoranda. Now, you would be keen to listen and hear perhaps if your concern raised has been asked. Some of these things are of public knowledge or public interest. For example, if it's something to do with academic qualifications, we know for those nominees who their academic criteria is questionable. So we'll be keen to listen whether that would be raised. There are those, for example, yesterday would see, for example, I'll be very direct. For example, for the CS nominee for cooperative societies, there already exists a response from the EACC who have objected to his nomination to cabinet. So we will be keen to listen and hear if the concern raised by EACC would be directly questioned to the nominee. So after the process, what happens is that the selection panel committee then would proceed to prepare a report. Now, it is on the basis of this report that it will be now subjected to the whole House for voting. Now, perhaps sometimes in the committee, there are usually different positions. You'd find there's a majority that approves the nominee, especially now when we had now the serious political divides. You'd find that some of the committee members perhaps have approved, others have declined the approval of the nominee. Now, it is usually subjected to a vote if it's not unanimous. And if a majority overpowers the minority, then you'd usually find that we have two scenarios where we have a majority report on the nominee or a minority report on the nominee, where that is where in instances where there is a very sharp divide as to the approval of the said nominee. So they will present both reports to the whole house for further debate, and it is at that point that finally it is subjected to a vote. Now, after all is said and done, then the committee is usually tasked to prepare a report. Now, you'd also be keen to obtain perhaps copies of the report and see if your questions or concerns were considered during the vetting panel. Now, that could be a very good ground if you'd be keen to follow it up and perhaps want to challenge it in a court of law. My presumption and my good guess, I'm not a prophet or a son of one, but some of our concerns are concerns that will have been they are cross-cutting. I'm very certain that unless it's a dossier that it's something that is not in the public domain, it's something that has been raised by many Kenyans and different stakeholders. So we will be keen to see whether the committee would proceed first of all and question. We want to see the kind of response. Then now we'd want to see the judgment based on the response, whether then it justifies perhaps the approval or the declining of the nomination of that particular nominee.
Thank you, Abner, for your submissions. And Zalendo, just to wrap this conversation up, when you look at Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, Cap 7F of the laws of Kenya, it does provide for that period for consideration and report. So unless otherwise provided in any law, this committee on appointments shall consider that or those nomination and table that particular report at the National Assembly and make the decision within 28 days from the date on which the notification of the nomination was given, in accordance with the Section 5 of the Act, which technically provides for the notification of the nomination. So what this report for consideration of these nominees to different positions, there's always there are always annexes, and these are the memorandums submitted by different persons. So when that report is out, just please, of course, you have to follow through the proceedings, but when that report is tabled within 28 days, you have to look at the table of contents and see through if your memorandum is public, because they always enlist all those memorandum and affidavits that have been submitted by the citizenry. So hopefully yours can form part of those memoranda and the affidavits as well. So I think you're now answered, Mzalendo. Mzalendo, can you hear me? Oh, well, Tomboy, are you now back? Tom, can you hear me? Okay. Kir, please proceed. Kir, please proceed.
Yes. Okay, I can hear you. Good morning, patriots.
Morning.
Yeah, so actually my submission for today, according to the topics of the Cabinet Secretary, their vetting that is scheduled for today, actually the first nominee is already on the panel being vetted. And I just want to side by what PLO has just mentioned, that truly in politics, things happen by design. They're not just errors or some things that just happen. So the political class, especially the executive, led by the president, he took the nominees and disbanded the whole cabinet, which made the whole country proud that now is going to make the right decision and choose experience and experience on the specific fields, not the political class. But we thought so. Sadly enough, he just went ahead and recycled some people he dismissed, including the interior for the cabinet, for environment, for interior security, and the defense. They were all recycled, which really disappointed me as an individual, because I really hoped this day for friends in the States. And so if that was not enough, went ahead and sided with the opposition. Okay, we believed they were the opposition made. Not anymore. I really don't believe they are the opposition. He chose the deputy party leaders and the chairman of the party. So for the parliament to be independent and not and favor citizens, because since the opposition and the non-opposition and the ruling government, all of them, I foresee a situation where they'll all pass and there won't be any contradicting opinions, because both the opposition, the minority and the majority are believed to be on the safe side. Also brings me to this question that are we really short-staffed of qualified people, hence the recycling? Because I believe as a country we really have many people who are qualified, who can do even better, but we just recycle the very same faces. Oparanya has been the face of politics for a while now, same to Joho, same to Mbadi, and all those nominees, and then we just continue seeing them over and over. So we wonder if we really are less of qualified people. And now we also use this chance to confirm if the executive and the president specifically really listens to the people, because it is all over that his nominees, they are not overly accepted by everyone, but he still went ahead and chose them. So I really want to bet on the government, on the legislature, to really help us in this situation, which is very hard because the majority and the minority are both on the same side. So it will be very hard fighting them, because even when you file a petition, if it has to go through the parliament or anything, it will be very hard. And now it is the citizens that, which is not really a fair way of doing politics and politicizing. So what I'm really coming to learn is that politics is described as a very dirty game, and we're just confirming it day by day. Every day you wake up, just see different things that will amaze you as a citizen. And so, following up on the vetting that is going on of the parliament nominees, as it mentioned, to see if the petitions by very are going to be that has been selected, led by the speaker, and see if questions will be brought up, and as citizens, if we will truly win this situation. Yeah, that is my submission.
Thank you, Kir. I appreciate your submissions, and keep following the live proceedings of the voting, and you can pick a thing or two therefrom. Yeah, so I would like to proceed to Daniel. Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, PLO, I can hear you quite well. Can you hear me as well?
Yes, I can. Please proceed.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to this conversation this morning. It's a very important conversation, especially given what has happened in the last 1 month or 2 months. And I think one thing we must all agree is that the dissolution of the cabinet was a consequence of the maandamano that happened because of the finance bill. And I think those are two key wins as a people that we must always bank. Now, I did write a very, I don't know, perhaps the longest post I've ever written on Twitter around how we should go about ensuring that we get the right people for this in the cabinet. And in my view, I think this is the only chance we have to make sure that we get the right people. Because after this change, chances are very high that we won't have any other change, because now the opposition, that is the Azimio side or the ODM side, and the KK side are on the same side, meaning anything that goes to parliament
is likely to pass. At least in the finance bill, if you remember, the ODM side of the opposition were against the finance bill. Now, this time round, ODM and KK are on the same side, and that will make it very difficult for any of the CSs not to sail through. And I think that is why Nane Nane is very important for us, because we must make sure that, once again, the parliament listens to the people. Because if the parliament is not listening to the people who elected them, it's not playing the representation role, then clearly there's a big problem. Now, on to the points that I guess must be ticked by most of these CSs. I think, number one, Chapter 6 of our Constitution is very clear, particularly on integrity, respect for the people, bringing honor to the nation, promoting public confidence, competence, accountability, and discipline. I think it's not very hard to implement our Chapter 6 of our Katiba, but we have deliberately decided not to do so, and indeed violate the Constitution. Yes, you might have allegations that have not been proven yet, but I think that's what public confidence means. If the public doesn't have confidence in you, then outrightly, whether it's about allegations, proven guilty or otherwise, you are not suitable for the role. Number two, there's a whole aspect of zero history of corruption. Again, if you have proven, or if the corruption is proven, or we're just talking about allegations, it goes back to the first point of Chapter 6. You do not inspire public confidence, and therefore you should pass on that chance to someone else who actually doesn't have even allegations, even an iota of allegations around corruption. That's the only way we can drain the swamp once and for all. Number three, I think the whole point of politicians being recycled, reused, as if we're dealing with waste management, really doesn't make sense to me. We should stop the culture of recycling and reusing politicians. And for decades, the government has done so, just recycling, reusing. And in my view, I do believe that politicians, first of all, are not leaders, and therefore, in positions of leadership, they almost certainly do not have a chance. And if there's any politician who you believe has had an outstanding track record of serving the country, serving the republic, I'm happy to take the name. But as of the ones who have been proposed now, the likes of Oparanya, the likes of Joho, the likes of Opio and anyone who's coming from the parliament as well, I don't think they've done anything for the public, for Kenyans, to deserve those roles. Number four, and the one that I also believe is very, very important, is on solid professional stroke leadership track record. Now, Chapter 6 talks about competence and suitability before selection. We must therefore have the most qualified people occupying these positions. And in terms of qualification, you have to talk about expertise, you have to talk about experience, you have to talk about track record of significant positive impact to the people. And as you're doing that, you have to talk about professional excellence. Now tell me, what sort of professional excellence, professional suitability, professional competence does someone like Joe have to offer in the mining docket? Absolutely zero, but I'm happy to hear if you have any. And in my view, if those are the kind of people we are going to have as CSs, then as a country, we are doomed. They'll be representing government in very important forums, signing important documents on behalf of Kenyans. If they are not competent, if they are not experts in those areas, if they've not demonstrated professional excellence, how are they going to represent Kenyans? How are they going to sign important documents, contracts on behalf of Kenyans? I think they absolutely cannot. Number five, and this is quite controversial, is around ethnic balance. We've always said it is in the public domain that we've made so many tribal